Hello.
Barry,
Where are you?
I'm back home.
Oh, you're back home. Okay.
Yeah, we flew back last night. Got back here about midnight, a little
Oh,
half hour after midnight.
okay. Welcome back. Welcome home.
Thanks. Did I tell you where I was?
I'm trying to think. Did you go to India?
No. This was
No.
in Puerto Vallarta.
Oh, Mexico.
Yeah, this was one of those all-inclusive vacations you hear about, but this was my very first time I'd ever tried it.
It wasn't Club Med though.
It was what?
Not Club Med.
Not Club Med.
Yeah, they are. There is one in Puerto Vallarta, I think. In fact,
Yeah,
I may have been
there's
there.
one in every vacation place, it seems like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. We are recording. We're 1 minute in. Oh, quick question. I was actually out on some excursion, I believe, yesterday. But did anything happen yesterday?
So Heiner was on, and Josh was on. Just the three of us.
Hmm.
Heiner came on, and he is now fully settled into his new apartment. And he gave us a video. Well, he gave me a video tour uh, for the first, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes before Josh showed up. And then Josh showed up just at the end of the video tour. And then it was the three of us for a while. And then Heiner had to leave to get ready. He listened for about an hour um, while he was getting ready for some kind of a party or luncheon or something.
Hmm.
Uh, And then he left after about an hour. And then Josh and I chatted during the second hour, and then we ended exactly the second hour. But of course, it wasn't recorded, and it's fine. It was nothing especially profound. Also, but there was a transcription, I believe. I think you have transcription turned on automatically, even when you're not here. Is that right?
Perhaps. I don't recall.
Yeah. So I don't know. There may have been a transcription, but there certainly wasn't any recording.
Hmm. I could check later. Yeah. And then let's see. I do have some questions for today if you're interested.
Yeah. Oh, here's Eric.
Ah,
Yeah, hello.
Hello.
Rango, how are you?
Okay, good. How are you?
Tanned? Spent the
Nice.
week in Mexico, so I am darker than I am usually.
Mm.
In fact, on Wednesday I was pink, and that could have been worse.
So was this a vacation or for work?
Yeah, this was vacation. I had it planned like 7 or 8 months ago.
Hmm.
Uh, so everything was already paid. So
Cool.
it's
Good.
wet. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how to take a vacation.
Me either. Not anymore, anyway.
It takes days to get used to it.
Right.
Yeah. And then days to get back, into work
Yep.
mode. So you got like 1 or 2 days within a week where you like say, hey, I'm somewhere else.
Yeah. What I might do is go to a conference and
Yeah.
take a week off for that. Yes.
Readapt. Yeah.
We have three. Oh, Sam's hiding.
Yeah, he just turned off his camera.
Okay.
Sorry, Gail was asking me something, so I just had to
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. All right. So I haven't yet watched that video that you just posted a few hours ago, Eric.
Yeah, this is from 2006 when Brad Newberg was on the Hyperscope project, and they were all learning Augment with the chord key set, and they were trying to figure out, how does Doug do this? How does he just jump from one thing to another so quickly? And they said, okay, we're gonna put Skype on, we're gonna record it in Flash, and we're gonna watch Doug work. So it's quite amazing. So I cleaned up the audio so you could hear Doug a little better. And yeah, so think of that, converting from old technology to current technology, YouTube. Yeah.
Have you become facile with the corded key set?
I'm getting there. I got to keep practicing. Yeah, see, so at the end of July, I'm going to be presenting online at Kansas Fest, the Apple II community, just showing them what I built and how I could do it on the Apple II. And on that demo for the Apple II shows all the functions of NLS, the uppercase, lowercase, and then the commands. So the commands are the view specs, and that takes some training to know, like, what to do. What does the V, how do you enter the symbols for the commands? Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, what are we interested in today?
So it's interesting because Hyperscope, while it was aligned with Doug, was a subset of what Doug wanted to do. So Doug was in this internal tension of either supporting it, but also being frustrated there was only small subset of what he wanted in NLS or a modern version of NLS.
Yeah.
That was an internal tension.
Yeah. So I was listening to some of Frode's recordings from 2004 when he actually sat down with Engelbart and Ted Nelson and Ted Nelson's wife at the time, Marlene Malakote. And what I got the sense was that Doug needed something to get out to the world, and Hyperscope was the easiest thing to build and get out there before he can get the rest of his ideas into products.
Well, other than my stuff, have you come across any mention of something called OHS?
Open Hypertext System. Yeah, he talks about that all the time, that that's needed, something in the future needed, but we have it. I think Workflow is an excellent incarnation of that.
It's not yet fully peer-to-peer collaboration,
Right. Yes, like what we're doing, we're sharing a Plex essentially.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, do you think it could do things like pull requests eventually? Like if we were working on a article together,
yeah, if a version of Workflowing, I do know there are people working on an open source version of Workflowing. So if something like that exposes an API or an extensible API, then that gets pretty close.
Okay. Jack Park found a Workflowy clone on GitHub, so he gave us the link to that if we wanted to look at that.
Yeah, he also mentioned CozoDB. I haven't looked at CozoDB yet because I was on vacation this week.
Okay. Actually, I'd like the recording from last week when whoever had, Barry, do you have it?
I have it now. When I zipped up the whole package, it was more than 5 gig.
Ugh.
I don't have 5 gig left on my Google Drive. So I can't Gmail it because I don't have space on Google Drive. And so the only thing that's obvious, unless there's another way that somebody can suggest, is I'll have to put it on one of my own web servers here with the URL to download it, and it'll download at 100 megabits. But
yeah, we just need to download it.
But I can't Gmail it because I don't have space on Google Drive.
So if I open up a drive on Google Drive and I let you have write access to it, does it still get counted against you or does it get counted against me?
I think when you attach something in a Gmail, it uploads it to your.
No, not Gmail, just uploading directly to Google Drive.
Oh, maybe, yes, maybe I can upload it directly to Google, just do a straight upload. Maybe I can do that. So if you have a Google Drive account and if it's possible to give me, well, either write access in general or write access to a specific named file or folder.
I'll give you a URL to a drive and see if you can do it.
Yeah, I've already got a name for the zip file. If I give you the name of it, then maybe that if it turns out you have to have the exact name, let me just bring up a.
Yes, that's a point of confusion that I've seen. Yeah, whose Google Drive space are you using when you upload? And like if you created a shared folder, but you log in with your own account, is it like giving your account putting it in the shared folder? And similar with YouTube, like I had a problem with a large video and the owner of the site hasn't gotten back to me with permission, so it's on my account for now.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Okay. Got to get to let's see. I remember where I parked it. Oh, I know where it is. It's in the Zoom. It's in my documents Zoom. That's where it would be because I haven't moved it out of there. Documents Zoom. And then that was June 23rd, right?
Last week, yeah, the
Yeah,
23rd.
so let me see. Can I copy that name and put it into?
So your Zoom recording is 5 gigabytes? So
It's 5.27 gigabytes. It's the zip of everything. It's not just
everything.
recorded. Yeah.
Right. I'm wondering why the Zoom recording would take up that much.
If anyone did a screen share in 4K, those are big.
Okay, I don't think we did.
Even in HD, it gets large because
Yeah,
the standard I think
copying
is
everything.
720.
Yep. Okay. Let's see what happens when we invite Jack Park. Gigabyte files. No. I mean, he really did.
So I am sorry I missed Jack. What got touched on and what's the follow-up potentially?
Well, he was able to relate topic maps to what we were discussing. And I think I showed some of my workflowy. And but I think there's some value in the concept of topic map for interchanging vocabularies in DKRs. So like if I have a word that you have a similar word in yours, and I think there's value in having that relationship, and topic maps are like relationships of relationships. So yeah, I really would like to hear exactly what he said again and take notes on it. Yep.
Okay, so I put into the chat the actual name of the zip file that I created last
Right.
week. So if you need to create an empty file of that name and give me write permission, then that would guarantee that I could upload it. In fact, we might just do that, during this 2-hour session.
You could try. I mean, if you created a shared folder with Barry, you think that would
Either a shared folder or a zero length file of that actual name, and if you can give me write permission to either the file or the folder.
Okay, let me try that now. Let me go to Google Drive, find a good place.
And then I
Because
will
there is
also,
a place.
and I will also open a, how does that work? How do I, well, I think you have to give me a URL to your Google Drive, maybe,
Yes.
I think. Because if I open Google Drive, it'll default to my Google Drive. I'm not sure how the naming convention works on that. If I start to upload it now, I'm not sure it'll slow down my whole
bandwidth.
system. Or if I should wait until. You want to make sure that you end up giving Eric the access permission also at the same time.
Well, I can wait till Sam puts it on YouTube.
Okay, I created a zero length file with exactly that name. Let me share it with you now.
Share it for read write.
Yes.
And then you can give me the URL for it.
And share to your email. What's your email again?
It's just barrycourt@gmail.com. Let me go make sure that I'm in the right place to get that.
Okay. Make you editor. Okay, organize, edit. Okay, send. Okay, so the email should be in your inbox.
I'm waiting for it to come in. Oh, there it is, updates. Okay. Now,
it'll allow you to overwrite Sam's file. That's the question.
Yeah, now let's see.
Or like create a new version of the file.
If I click open from the email, I think that will do what I want, I hope. Okay, shared with drop the files here. All right, I should be able to drop that file there or use the new button, which is the easiest way to do that.
Yes, I'm wondering if Sam created it, then it's on Sam's account.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yes, that is true.
So then Barry could upload into it and just using your space.
Where's the new button?
Although it would be better if I just created a folder and shared it and you could just drop it into
I
that.
think it is a folder, isn't it?
It is a file right now, exactly.
Oh, well, okay. Well, let me see if I can. It says drop file here. Let me see if I can. I got to make that smaller. No, that's
I
wrong.
can create a folder, but you said create a file, right?
Well, we'll just see. Let me just see if I can.
Well, in the meantime, there's two things I wanted to bring up for CSG this week. Neither of which is mandatory, but I thought, both were pertinent. Looks like Barry is occupied.
I want to see if I can drop. I'm going to see if I can drag and drop that if it works. Drop files to upload them to that. All right. Your storage is full. Buy storage or clear up space, upload files, clean up space. Is it your storage is full or my storage is full?
Yours. I still have space.
Yeah, try
Okay,
creating a
just-
shared folder then.
Yeah. Okay, I'll create a shared folder. I'm going to delete this thing here since it's not working.
Oh, wait a second. Am I in yours or mine? No, it says. All right, I don't quite understand. Yeah, because when I dragged it, it thinks it's going to put it in my zip, not my drive, not yours.
Okay. All right, I'm going to delete that.
Okay,
I'm going to create a folder here.
this folder's in the orange trash. Dismiss. Okay.
Folder.
Now I'm going to have to probably go back to mail.
Barry's 20240623 Zoom files. Okay, so that's what the folder is called. And now I'm going to share it with you. And share
I can delete that message.
with Barry. As editor. Dump files here. I still think it's going to get counted against you, though.
Probably. If
we'll
it does,
try
then
it.
we'll do it. Then we'll have to do it the other
Well-
way, which is me simply put it up on one. Oh, wait, here we go. Here's
Anyway, you should have that in your inbox now, Barry.
all right, so I'll open that and see what comes up.
Now you see how the
Still
decentralized web.
still looks like it's
this.
going to be.
Yes.
I think it's going to be the same thing. Yeah, your storage is full. So even though
Using yours. Yeah.
there, it wants to put it on my drive, not your drive. That doesn't seem to work.
All right, create a website later then.
Now, since you are an Apple aficionado, don't you have Apple File Share or Apple Drive somewhere where you could dump things?
Maybe. I don't know how big it is though. See, normally when I use Gmail, it just goes to Google Drive.
Of course.
And I'm not sure how to.
But see, if you don't know how big it is, you're probably not up against the limit.
Well, probably not. I don't. Yeah, let's see. To go to my. Let's see. How do I go
So
to
the question
my
is, should we
Apple?
do this here, take this time, or can we do something better with this time?
Well, the thing is, I'm gonna either have to do the research, or unless you already know how to do it, and just tell me. How to get to
The
Apple.
research is pay a couple of dollars and increase your capacity on Google Drive
Yeah, well.
for a month, like $2, $1.
Yeah. Yeah, what are you paying for?
Let's
Right.
let's just forget it for
We
now.
just already spent more than $1 or $2, just researching this thing with our time.
Yes.
Mhm.
All right. Well, let's just set it aside for now, and I'll figure
Yep.
it out.
Okay. All right. So I had two questions. One's probably more interesting than the other. One is relevant to today, one is relevant to Barry. Okay, Barry, you posted something this week from Renee Girard. Do you remember what it was?
Something I think posted yesterday. Well, a new person, Esteban Young, who I not met before, asked me a question that was somehow related to Girard, or at least I mentioned Girard in my answer. Let me find it.
Well, let me quote you, or quote Girard in your post, okay?
Okay.
The quote is, "Clear thinking is rarely forgivable."
Oh, I don't remember that. Is that the whole thing?
That's the part that I remember.
Oh, well, let me see if I can find.
I don't think it was yesterday because I was traveling yesterday, so I would not.
Oh, okay, then, yeah, all right.
And I think it was probably at least a week ago,
Oh,
approximately.
okay, so
or
let me go to the Gerard group then. Assuming it's in the Gerard group.
Well, you know, if you know Gerard, you could probably reconstruct what you or he meant by that. So I'm curious that it doesn't ring a bell for you.
Well, it's just that I don't have enough context to figure out what you're referring to.
Well, who's the first person you mentioned? Rosalind or?
Rosalind Picard is the person at MIT
Yep.
work with, but
But Sam, is that the person you mentioned?
No, in fact, it was Barry who posted the meme.
Right, but who's that person who we referred to?
Rene Girard was
Renee.
the source of
Rene Girard is the late Rene Girard was a emeritus professor of the humanities at Stanford. And he did research on literary analysis. And he analyzed an enormous corpus of literature looking for underlying patterns of storycraft. And he found this one model that's known as, well, it's got more than one name. I call it Girard's model of contagion.
Okay.
It basically says most drama has a conflict in it, and he has this sort of generic model of conflict as it appears in drama.
Okay, interesting. Thanks.
Yeah, actually, well, let me see if I can find my.
Well, I found a reference, Barry.
Okay, you
In
did?
his book called Battling to the End, according to this search, okay? On page 152, Girard is quoted as saying, clear thinking is rarely forgivable. Now, I can construct for myself what he or you might have meant by that, but I'd rather get it from the horse's teeth.
I actually don't recall that quote
Yeah,
from
we
Gerard.
need
Oh,
context.
all right, so I just found the article. George Dunn on June 20th posted in the Gerard group, discussion group, clear thinking is rarely forgivable, battling to the end. And then let me see, let me go to the
You
comments.
must have reposted that.
Oh, okay. And then what I did is I posted a comment underneath it that simply says, CC Sam Hahn, especially in the case of rigorous model-based reasoning. So I basically accepted the quote as posted by George Dunn. And then I said, it's especially unforgivable in the case of rigorous model-based reasoning. When did I post that? A week ago.
Yes.
Well, and in particular, the kind of clear thinking that is, as a scientist, that I find powerful is scientific models, model-based reasoning. So if you're using a scientific model and doing model-based reasoning, that's an instance of clear thinking, at least in the world of systems thinking. And the notion that it's rarely forgivable, it occurs to me that that's the one case of rigorous model-based reasoning that I do or did kind of professionally. And I'm aware of the fact that that people will take exception to it and not forgive it. And then, for example, in Wikipedia, I ran into all kinds of flack for doing model-based reasoning. And
I forgive you, Barry.
yeah, but Jimmy Wales did not. Jimmy Wales basically threw me off the system for positing some clear thinking using model-based reasoning.
Yeah, I tried to put up one article and then someone told me that that's not a real article, whatever. I had to make it a stub. But yeah.
The thing was that I had proposed that to the extent that Wikipedia is presenting information as an educational repository, and one of the audiences is that children around the world and adults around the world are learning from Wikipedia, that the content that might be extremely useful is content on ethical reasoning. Okay. And I was employing, not only talking about it, but employing examples of it. And in particular, employing examples of it where people on Wikipedia were posting nonsense, things that could be falsified by, okay. And some of the people who were posting baloney were very powerful administrators who were friends of Jimmy Wales. And so I was challenging them by showing that what they were doing was fundamentally unethical. And you don't want to be teaching examples of unethical conduct with your audience as people who are learning from Wikipedia. And Jimmy Wales came back and said, you're not allowed to post that. And ethics is beyond the scope of the project. Ethics is beyond the scope of Wikimedia Foundation. And that
Can
was
you
his
actually
reason.
post an extract or a screenshot of him with that particular statement?
If I can find it, because
Do
we're
it.
talking about 10 years ago, it
Do
would have been on Wikiversity or an email, but I think it was in
Barry,
Wiki.
you got it. Do it.
Well, let me, you want me to try to find it
No,
now?
not now. Sometime in the next week. Okay.
Yeah, it's been 10 years, so it's hard, and it's really hard to find stuff on Wikipedia. But maybe I can find it. I don't know.
Yeah, even trying
Was
to
it in a
find
talk page?
It would have been probably in a talk page 10 years ago, or it might have been an email, but I think it was probably online on Wikiversity. Now, here's the other thing is that the administrators can also hide stuff. So it becomes, even though it was said, it's no longer findable.
Yeah,
Except by
This, according to Doug and me, is unforgivable.
Yep.
Okay. It actually damages the historical record.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it actually extracts from our understanding of the truth.
Yeah, it's 1984. You could edit the truth.
I could probably find some places where I quoted him as saying it, but that won't necessarily point back to the instance of where he said it.
Yeah, see,
Well,
the
it
Internet
would be
Archive.
significant. It would be even significant if you tried to look for it and were unable to find it.
Well, here's the problem. When he kicked me off, they hid a lot of my talk page. If he said it on my talk page, then they hid my talk page. Then I can't find it.
Yeah, that's crap.
Try searching archive.org because sometimes you can find old stuff there. I'm not sure how much.
I don't think archive.org would archive
they might.
Wikipedia. But
they might.
So
yeah, it's hard to find things. And
yeah.
Like I'm trying to find a file from 2020 where on
I
my
can
hard
probably
drives.
find evidence that I quoted him as saying it, but I don't know if I can find the place that he said it because they probably when they kicked me off, they basically made my own stuff inaccessible to even me.
Oh my, that's no good.
And if that's where he posted it, then I don't know. But I'll try to see if I'll have maybe time later this afternoon. If I can find it, I will. The point is that when he said ethics is beyond the scope of the project, that was a gigantic red flag.
About ethics is beyond the scope of government.
Well, it's the thing is, ethics is beyond the scope of what you can write in word-based languages. The calculus of mathematics and the calculus of ethics, you can mention it and characterize it, but you can't specify it. There's no algorithm.
No. Language allows you to approximate anything, and that is still valid. The fact that it is not as precise as mathematics is not a reason to forego it and not use it.
Well, you would think that the Constitution or some government document would spell out what's ethics, what's ethical reasoning or ethical content. And I don't think it exists.
It was an attempt to consolidate history and find the best and go forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was basically a compiled set of learnings, okay? But it wasn't necessarily the theory.
I mean, certainly, John Rawls taught a course. Well, my friend Nancy Williams taught a course in ethics and journalism. But it's not a specification. It's simply it's like case studies.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So let's forego that instance. Hopefully, if you decide to take up this homework, maybe you can find it. But the earlier point was this quote that said, "Clear thinking is rarely forgivable." Like I say, I can extrapolate myself to see what meaning might come from it, but I am curious about why you or the original person or Rene Girard themselves posted and reposted this.
We get a book summary of that battling to the end, like from AI. What content, text,
Yeah,
that book.
we could ask chat all to do this.
Okay.
I mean, I've written a summary of Girard's model of contagion. It's one of the very first things I ever wrote that's on the public internet. And it is a systems theoretic model. Let me just see. I think I can actually pull up real quick. That's not the place to find it. That's the place. It's the contagion. Where's contagion? It's right here.
Just, I'm using model-based reasoning all the time in my work because trying to figure out what Azure does with your files or how, why there's a problem.
Okay, so here's what I've expressed. Before I hit go, I said, in Rene Girard's Battling to the End, what did he mean by the statement, clear thinking is rarely forgivable? Shall I add anything to that?
So my point is that the example that came to mind is model-based reasoning, and model-based reasoning includes things that attack popular human behavior.
Okay, but how do you want me to change this particular prompt?
Oh,
Add the page number, maybe.
I did add. I said
Yeah,
on page
okay.
152.
Okay, good.
What did he mean?
Yeah, then I would just submit it and see what it comes back with.
well, why don't we ask one of the chat GPTs if I don't know if the chat GPTs have read Girard, probably they have.
All right. Anyway, I'm sending it now. And let's see what it comes back with.
Which of the chat GPTs do we think is the most comprehensive one? Well, there's Claude. I don't know which one to try. Maybe try more than one of them.
Okay, so I'm sending it to about 8 in parallel, and the one that's coming back first is UChat. Okay, so it says, in Rene Girard's book, Battling to the End, on page 152, he states clear thinking is really unforgivable. Unfortunately, the research results did not provide the specific context or explanation for this statement. However, based on the available information, it seems that Girard is suggesting that clear thinking, which may challenge established beliefs or social norms, can often be met with resistance or condemnation. Okay, so that's the implication that I got from it.
Okay, so
Sure.
Galileo,
Right.
Copernicus.
And
So-
and
It's
I
not
mean-
done yet. Let me finish its
Okay,
quote.
sorry.
Girard's work often explores the role of mimetic desire, violence, and scapegoating in human societies. He argues that human conflicts and rivalries are often driven by imitative desires and the tendency to scapegoat others. It is possible that Girard's statement about clear thinking being rarely forgivable is related to his broader analysis of how societies tend to resist or reject ideas that challenge the established beliefs or social structures. It's not repeating itself. To gain a deeper understanding of Girard's specific meaning, it would be best to refer to the book itself to consult. That's crap. Okay, so we got one useful paragraph out of it. But
if you click on the link I put in the chat for my contagion article, the
Yep.
contagion article in less than one page summarizes that mimetic rivalry, scapegoating. It's the whole thing as a system theoretic model, summarizing very concisely Girard's model that it's mentioning there.
Okay. So
And-
I am therefore not surprised. I was hoping there was more to it, but that was the implication I thought I read from
Okay.
that quote.
So one of the things that is fascinating about Girard's model of contagion, some theoretic model of conflict, competition, and violence, is that it comports with the teachings of the New Testament. That is, you can argue that the teachings of the New Testament are an instance of this application of the thinking of Girard's model of contagion. That with Girard's model of contagion, you can derive the teachings, the core teachings of the New Testament by a secular analysis if you adopt the model. If you adopt his model of contagion and a set of ideal objectives, nonviolence, non-injustice, non-abuse, a whole bunch of things that you think are undesirable behaviors, you can derive that the best practices correspond to the teachings of the New Testament. That's one of the things that comes out of his model. And that's the reason I liked it, because you can then as John Rawls did in his course on ethics, the whole thing becomes a secular derivation of how to comport yourself in a way that doesn't get you into difficulty, but doesn't get you out of criticism.
Yeah, but see, that could almost be said of any reasonable systems theoretic model. Any reasonable systems theoretic model could derive any other set of heuristics that seem reasonable, not just the New Testament.
Yeah, you could do a
No,
comparative religious
my
study.
point is the contagion model aligns with the new. That's the whole point of the contagion model.
Okay,
It's not. I mean, I did systems theoretic model have nothing to do with the New Testament. It have to do with the telephone network. Okay.
so I think you're saying like Jesus tapped into some sentiment among these people and did a Cambridge Analytica and got them all to follow
Well,
him.
So here's the interesting thing about Girard was born in France, and French is his first language, and he tended to write in French. It had to be translated in English. Girard was an atheist.
Mhm.
And then he did this study at Stanford, and he came up with this model, this system theoretic model of competition, conflict, and violence, which is from the whole corpus of literature, which included the scriptures and the Greek mythology and all that. Basically the whole thing. And he says, gee, using this model, I can see that the teachings of Jesus are an example of what you can derive from this model.
Okay.
And so the hypothesis is that Jesus was doing the systems thinking with this model, even though he didn't write the model down, because systems thinking was sort of. But
yeah,
so
I'll
the
grant
argument
that
is,
opinion.
yeah. So the argument is that you could posit that Jesus was a systems thinker and he was relying on this model because you can get the teachings from this model, just as from John Rawls you can get comparable teachings about ethics. And you can do it in a completely secular way. But 2,000 years ago, you didn't have the advantage of academic context. So
right.
basically, it's the rabbinical teachings as opposed to secular teachings.
But you know what you could also say is that Jesus went inward and thought, okay, what should I say to these people? And he could have probably reasoned it out. Oh, these people are fighting, they're killing each other. I should say
Right.
something about that. Yeah.
Exactly. So what turned out was this concordance between Girard's model and the outcome of Jesus's teachings,
Mhm.
from which you can posit that he was using that model or something very close to it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons that I suddenly found the teaching of the New Testament worth looking at, because you can reprise them with a secular systems theoretic model for Girard.
Okay, so if I might react, that doesn't pass Occam's razor's test.
I'm not sure how to.
It's a larger than necessary fabrication of what actually happened.
Well, it doesn't prove it. It simply
Yes.
says that you can get to the same teachings without attending to the text of the New Testament. You can get to the
Yeah.
same.
You could also do it by actually saying, okay, so some other scholar hypothesized that Jesus in those missing decades went to India, learned Buddhism or some other aspect
Or
of
Confucianism.
Exactly.
Because Confucian was you can argue these people were all doing some version of systems thinking.
Yes, way before Jesus.
And so systems thinking has been around, but it wasn't called that until the 20th century. But the theologians were among the pioneers of systems thinking, including Confucius and maybe Lao Tzu and whoever. And that today we have secular systems thinking that can be constructed without having to rely on theology as the source, even though the theologians were pioneering that kind of thinking. That's where the ninth intelligence, this is when Howard Gardner came up with the ninth intelligence. People had been pushing him to call it religious or theological intelligence. He didn't want to call it that. But he nevertheless appreciated there was some kind of intelligent thinking involved, and he proposed to call it existential intelligence. He coined it existential thinking or existential intelligence, and it's the ninth one in his catalog. So I just call it the ninth intelligence, and I'll even give you a link to that.
Well, look, if you're looking for other historical contextual thinkers. I'm not going to call it systemic thinking, but people who are trying to put pieces together. Okay. And in fact, you could look at early cosmology as an attempt at this as well.
Yeah.
Then if you take a look at what the samurai warriors were trying to do, you know what their education consisted of? Okay. Not just sword fighting. It was calligraphy. It was music.
Yeah.
It was poetry.
Steam,
And it was
essentially.
some other aspect, I think there were 5 things. I forget what the last one is. But anyway, they're saying you got to be good at all of this stuff. Otherwise, you're not going to be a good samurai or a
Right.
warrior.
Yeah. So
Because a lot of that was
Mental.
ethical thinking.
Right.
And it was how to approach an encounter. You're lost if you're angry. Those kind of concepts.
Yeah.
Preparation is everything.
Yeah.
And understanding the way, the universe moves, understanding the human body, understanding, blades have, more than one edge, all that sort of thing is necessary to become a good samurai.
Yeah.
And would Tai Chi be related to that in any way? Like the
Probably,
principles?
Because Tai Chi is directly evolved from Taoism.
Okay.
It really is. Okay.
Yeah, you're avoiding getting hit and using the energy.
And by
Not
the
just
way,
that, but
Raymond,
you're also deflecting, you're also understanding
Right.
rotation, you're understanding, force and deflection and, balance and
Mhm.
flow.
and by the way, Raymond Smullyan, who was a classical philosopher, logician, mathematician, wrote a book on Taoism called The Tao is Silent. And one of the chapters in it is a dialogue, a Socratic dialogue. And the title of the dialogue is God a Taoist? And he has a character in this dialogue which is God, and a character who's mortal, and they have a conversation in the Socratic style. And the argument is that this conversation is consistent with Taoism, and so the title of it is God a Taoist, and that's up on my website
Before
too.
or after Fritjof Capra?
I think I have the date is on the article. Let me just find it.
Do you know who Fritjof Capra is?
Yeah, he wrote the Tao. What's the title of his book?
The Tao of Physics.
Tao of Physics. Yeah, they're probably
That
about the
was
same.
way before 1980.
Yeah, I think this was 77. Let me just get it.
Okay, so you're spelling it Tao when you say
Yeah.
Tao? Yeah, okay. And when people say Tao De Jing, is that similar or they're different?
It is the Tao referenced in the Tao Te Ching. Yes, the Tao
Okay.
Te Ching is the name of the book.
Okay, so that's
I
the
see.
principles of Taoism in that book, and then
Yes.
yeah, people take the concept, extend it to other areas.
And bastardize it, yes.
Okay, but is that Buddhist or something else?
It's Taoist.
Tao, it's a separate religion?
It's not a
Okay.
religion. It is
No,
not
it's a
theistic.
movement. What is it?
It is not theistic, so
Uh-huh.
therefore it is not a religion in my
Okay,
book.
it's a practice of life, or
It's a set of principles and understanding how things work. Okay.
Okay,
Tao
got it.
basically is the way. The way meaning the way the universe works.
okay. And there's similar concepts all over in many different religions about the way. Yeah.
Yeah, but this got written up like 4,200 or 4,600 years ago.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, that's cool, Barry.
All right, so I
Maybe, I don't know.
posted
I forget
in the
exactly.
opening a couple of exchanges from. This comes right out of his book, The Tao is Silent. One of the chapters in the. It's a lovely chapter, and it's about free will. It's about why we have free will. The
Mhm.
mortal is distressed that he has to have free will because that means he has to be ethical, among other things.
My
He
problem
doesn't
is
want the burden. Doesn't want the burden of having to make ethical choices, and so it's a wonderful, somewhere in the middle of this dialogue, the mortal is doubting whether he's actually having a conversation with God or he's imagining the whole thing. So he asks his interlocutor, "How do I know that you're real?" And there's a cute little passage where God tries to respond to this question: "How do I know I'm not making up your character?" And so the mortal says, how can I sense your existence? And God says, it'd be more to say that I am your senses. But the mortal's not quite satisfied, so he asks for a more response. And God says, perhaps the best definition of you mortals can give of me at this stage of your evolution is that I I mean, how does he put it? I am the very process of enlightenment. God defines himself as the process of enlightenment in this passage. You need to go back and read it because I'm probably not paraphrasing it quite right. But the notion that divinity encompasses the process of enlightenment is a very interesting element of that whole dialogue.
Well, these conversations have been attempted before, right? Isn't there another book called God, This is Anna or something similar?
Yeah,
And
there's
there's other
conversations
people.
in the garden. There's in fact, I even wrote a conversation between a little girl and God, conversation in the garden, as an introduction to my work on emotions and learning.
And there are various hints of stuff like this in the Celestine Prophecies books as well.
People will write little dialogues between themselves and their deity.
Yeah, so this is why I can't myself yet suspend this belief enough to really get into these conversations because I already know they're fabricated. So
Well,
rather than just reading it, to understand the interaction, I'm actually trying to read it thinking, what was the guy writing it thinking when he was trying to.
Zen koans are fabricated too, but the whole point of a Zen koan is to foster a moment of enlightenment. And so these dialogues the purpose of these dialogues is to sort of open your eyes and maybe prompt some kind of enlightenment. And Zen koans do it. They're all these Nasrudin stories. They're all about how to achieve a moment of enlightenment or insight. I mean, Martin Gardner wrote a book, Aha Insight, and how do you get to insights? And model-based reasoning, I found, is an excellent way to get to insights. You posit a model, you run the model, and if the model's any good, if you're lucky, you get an insight.
Now, you see, my models are from the 80s and 90s about how computers are supposed to work. And now I deal with these cloud things, and it challenges my models. Like, what is a file? Yeah.
One of the things that's interesting is whether AIs will have a psychology that we recognize, comparable to human psychology, or will AIs develop their own psychology that we can compare to human psychology? And I'm looking forward to the analysis of the psychology of AIs when they become autonomous learning systems.
See, right now it depends on what you're training it on. So
right, and they're not trained on ethics yet.
No, it's a corpus. From whose corpus are you training it on? But then, when do you get AGI? Is that coming next year or what?
Yeah. When do you get to a point where AIs have a identifiable, discernible psychology, and what will that psychology look like compared to human psychology?
I think Cory Doctorow tried in his book Walk Away to give his theory about that.
Yeah. Of course, it's too soon. I think it may be a little too soon to answer that, except very speculatively. But I think it will be a very interesting aspect of AIs to say, how would you compare the psychology? Because, for example, some of them will apologize if you point out an inconsistency. They'll say A and then they'll say not A a paragraph or two later, and you point that out, and they'll realize that they said something inconsistent, and they'll be apologetic about it and try to revise themselves. And that's a bit of psychology, it's so they will have some kind of, and will they have the psychology of a scientist who tries to be consistent and not confabulate speculative stuff that can't be falsified? And if it is falsified, do they go to the effort to make sure that it's not trivially falsifiable? Will they have the psychology of a scientist, for example? Go ahead, Sam.
Again, in that, I find it troubling or difficult for me to take that step to say, oh, this is aspect of psychology. These are still just pattern-based interactions going on, okay? So it just happened to be that the early interaction and the later interaction didn't share a common representation of what was going to be consistent. It was just a random set of patterns that was plausible in that instance, plausible in this instance, and it didn't know to do the checking.
But self-awareness is about recognizing self.
Right, but we clearly don't have that, right? Because they don't have this model internally that says, oh, if I say something here, I cannot contradict it later. There isn't
exactly. And that's one of the things that when they begin to get the faculty of checking themselves for self-consistency, will that then become the beginnings of recognizing a psychology?
But that's not actually going to happen until it has some rich representation of its own
Yeah.
internal
Oh, no, I
processes.
agree. And I don't
It
think
took
that's
us
gonna
thousands of years for humans to come up with that.
But yeah, except that they have, I think that the AIs can can progress much faster than humans did.
Undoubtedly, I think it will. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think we'll eventually run into a goidal problem that the AI cannot derive its
Well, there
proof
will definitely be truths which cannot be
derived. Okay.
established or proven. They can be posited and speculated, and maybe even observe that there's no way to prove or disprove them.
Yeah, maybe they could do a statistical analysis. This has like 95% confidence of truth. Yeah.
And when you start working from things are probably so and probably not so, then you start to get into psychology.
But wait. When it comes to physics, we don't know truth either. We just have a
And
five
that's
or
a-
six,
yes,
sig- we just have
exactly.
a 5 or 6 sigma bar that says, okay, beyond this, we're going to accept it for now.
That's
And
what I mean by
so
the
why
that's what I mean by the
bother
psychology
getting
of
all
the
worked
science.
up about the fact that I can't prove this, can't prove that? Okay, it's true in physics. It's also, true elsewhere.
Can I use the model at least within a
No,
constraint?
wait. I'm not done. The problem is when people say you can't prove it, they want you to disregard it completely.
Oh, no,
That
science wouldn't say that.
is not a reasonable response. And it's
No.
not even a, sensible response.
That's
Okay?
an unscientific psychology.
Right. So what I'm saying is, yeah, you could basically say, I can't prove gravity, if you're a common layperson, okay? But if you were just going to toss it out the window, might as well toss yourself out the window since you don't believe in gravity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
But
It's
it
stupid.
works. It worked for Newton.
Exactly.
And
You go with what
and
works.
yeah, and it
This
worked
is
for a
what you
few
can
hundred
prove.
years before
It didn't work for
Einstein.
Mercury to the nth decimal place, though.
Right. But you were able to use most of the model. It's just the edge cases.
We used Newton's gravity to get to the moon. We did not use Einstein to
It's
get to the moon.
completely fine. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's right. I used to say to somebody, when we were working on ways we collaborate, because I was interested in early problems or issues with collaborology. If you're trying to go, let's say, a few miles in a covered wagon, okay? It's okay that your wheels are wood and your spokes are a little bit off by an eighth of a meter or whatever, eighth of a centimeter, or that you could just get bumpy jostling, over rocks and stuff like that. That's a case. It's completely simple. You don't have to be that precise with your measurements and your carpentry and your construction and all of that. Okay.
It's not a BMW.
But if you try to go to the moon, you can't deal with those level of bad tolerances. Okay. Imagine how bad it would get if you were off by an eighth of an inch and trying to get this particular thruster centered with that particular center of mass.
Sustainability
Disaster would happen.
more than the
So
lifetime.
it depends on your use case. It depends on your problem, how precise you need to be. And most people are very sloppy with their thinking.
Yes.
Oh, you can't prove this? Let me toss it out completely. That's such bullshit. I'm just really, really.
Or even if you
annoyed
can't
when people
prove it, the
cannot
proof is
think.
so arcane that they can't digest the proof. A lot of the proofs in mathematics are beyond the average person's ability to verify them or even
The point
follow.
I'm making is not whether you understand the proof. Okay. The point is you don't need the proof if you've got enough corpus of experience.
Yeah.
Today. Okay. I'm not saying don't pursue a proof. I'm just saying don't insist that you need one to believe something.
Yeah.
Over. Yeah, Josh.
Hey, Sam, have you ever seen the movie Good Will Hunting?
Yes.
Yeah.
That famous scene in the movie where he's talking to the guy who's trying to hit on his girl at the bar, and they're outside and they're having like a knowledge off. And so he's Mr. Harvard educated talking to the no educated Boston guy. But I always think that there's another guy 10 times smarter than the Good Will Hunting guy that could just come in and go, oh, yeah, you think your thoughts are original? I know where you got that one from, too. And then it could just keep laddering up like turtles all the way down. So I think the question is, when you think you're so sharp and you've read so many books and you know so precise what that knowledge is, there's always someone with a little more. And that's what I got out of the Tao teaching, that idea.
So, Eric.
And I learned that as a rapper. I battled everybody. I thought I was the best rapper. I beat this guy, that guy, this girl, this guy, this guy. I kept going. I went to New York. I kept going. Then I met this guy and I went, oh my God, he's 10 times better than I'll ever be in my life.
So the Tao
But-
way of saying that is you can't pour into a full cup.
That's not what I'm saying, but that's not the Tao saying that I'm saying. But I'm saying there's always more precise than your precision because pi goes to infinite decimal places.
Well, I mean, in science, one of the things in science is after you make a contribution to science, you mention at the end the new or remaining unanswered questions that nobody knows the answer to. You always leave space for the next generation to do more work.
Right.
And from time to time, somebody makes a contribution that nobody ever thought of before. That's the whole idea of a new novel theory. It's rare, but it's not zero.
And Engelbart left us plenty of work to do. Right?
Speaking on that, what are the top 3 things that you two are working on? Or I don't know if you're involved, Barry. On the
I'm sort of auditing this, but at a distant level, because most of it's over my head.
Yeah, I don't think we've
I'm just
decided.
curious.
I've just
Yeah.
been putting my notes into workflowy. Sam's been putting his comments in, and I'm thinking we may want to talk to Frode Haglund at some point, see what he's done, where he is now. Yeah,
Because I'm curious if there are things that have really never been solved or have been solved but got pushed away and we don't know about them.
Well, certainly in physics and mathematics, there's some well-known stuff that haven't been solved.
Yeah, with Engelbart's the human side of how people should work together and tackle challenges. Go ahead, Sam.
I've got my short, concise version of what that human side problem is. And it's not how Doug expresses it, but this is how I distill it for myself. Is that in any collaboration, if you have a project or a work or a product or a decision or a plan that you're trying to create, and if you really understand collaboration well, then adding another collaborator should not decrease the quality of the work product, but potentially increase it. You can guarantee, if you know collaborological principles, okay, you should be able to guarantee that adding someone to a collaboration will not destroy the quality of the collaboration already. In other words, any new person should either increase or maintain what has been done before. The problem with that today is we, of course, don't do that. We can add somebody to a team and the team falls apart or they don't actually,
You get more conflict.
function well. Okay, so we do not understand collaborology to that extent today.
Even if you agree on the goal, you may have disparate methods. And well, it says, well, this method is the one that I'm going to work on. I think your method's going to run into a brick wall. And so you end up with competing methods to all achieve the same goal. And maybe none of the methods are going to work.
Which is completely fine. That's how you want to entertain new ideas. But you cannot do it in such a way that you feel so threatened that all
But
of
you
a
may
sudden now
spend
you
more
got this
time
separation
working on a method
desire.
before you find the brick wall for that
Yeah,
method.
you want to fail fast.
You want to find the reason it's going to fail as quickly as possible.
Right.
The more people are working on parallel projects, the longer it's going to take to find the brick wall for any one of them.
Yep.
Joshua.
I'm just trying to remember back to when I first met you, Sam, all the different things that we were trying to tackle in terms of adding another person to the team and in terms of making the team better and in terms of making the project better.
Yep.
And the incentive, all the incentives have to line up. And that was the hard part, is we couldn't get all the incentives to line up.
Well, in my mind, you don't have to do that. The problem is most teams don't even recognize how they're measuring success. Okay. And if you choose to collaborate and you don't jointly define or at least, hypothesize what success or done or, good means, you're guaranteed to run into misunderstandings / disagreements / conflicts later. Okay. So that's why I say projects don't end up wrong. Projects start wrong.
Yeah, they're not disciplined. I mean, look at the people who work on perpetual motion machines, and other people say that'll never work for a reason. That's sort of a fundamental principle of nature that you're trying to violate. Or cold fusion, where people were trying to do cold fusion against all kinds of reasons why it was going to fail. And you basically say, okay, go off and do your thing. I know I'm going to predict you're going to fail, but you're going to. It's like Joseph Priestley with phlogiston. He went to his deathbed believing in phlogiston, and
Or
even though
NASA working right now on a propulsion engine that, you know.
oh, that crazy engine,
Yes.
yeah,
What is that? What is that thing called?
I forget what it's called, but yeah.
I was going to say, have you guys mentioned the belief that you're going to succeed and the belief systems involved in a project? 'Cause to me, that's the most important thing. When I play pickup basketball, I always try to give the worst player the ball at a time when it's not important and let them shoot it, and then give them a time when it is slightly important. Like give them at least 3 chances, because usually they get 0 chances because they're the worst player. They don't get to shoot. But then at the very last shot, when everyone thinks that the best player is going to shoot it, pass it to that worst player because they're usually the one wide open, and let them sink the final shot. And they either, it's like that's the worst person you want to have take it, but it's the person that wants it the most because they're the worst person, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of success with that if I did the timing right. It's all a timing thing. You don't give the worst person on the team the last piece of the puzzle to put into the project unless you all have the belief in that person. Like there's a belief thing that they can actually accomplish that last bit of the project.
That actually happened to me in grammar school. We were playing baseball and we were running out of time. So they wanted to end the inning. So they put me at bat because I was always missing. And that was the one time I hit the ball and it didn't end the inning.
Yeah, I guess my thing is, what I'm trying to say is if you can strengthen your weakest link in the project, in the team, whether it be a person
Oh, yeah.
or something that you're doing, if you can strengthen up that link as strong as it can be, when you need to pull on it, it's not going to break on you.
It requires the right environment, where
Yeah.
you're not punishing people for not meeting deadlines or failing, and there's a different definition of work. So like I also think of it as belief in myself, that I feel like okay, I grew up learning software one way, and I have intuition about the newer ways of doing it, and I could learn over time what I need to know to contribute to a project in functional design or whatever we do. But I'm still gonna draw on my own experience, but it's that belief in myself that I've seen, that if I can keep that belief in myself, then I'll succeed in my definition of success, but may not be Sam's definition of success.
That like Sam was saying about the tire analogy of the micron of a wooden tire going over dirt, as opposed to a very precise piece of equipment. If you can get it as precise as possible, then you have a chance to make it without the wheel falling off.
Yeah, see, I think we have to look at Doug Engelbart's visions won't be complete in our lifetimes. So what can we give to future generations to give them a little head start? So like for me,
what was an example of that? I'm so curious because I don't know that what his vision was that won't be complete.
Well, I think dynamic knowledge repositories is an important one, and I'm not sure we really understand how they should exist or what how to build them and maintain them. Go ahead, Sam.
Well, another thing that he did say was individuals, single geniuses, are not likely to solve the world's problems, the top 16, okay? Whether it's hunger, whether it's class strife, whether it's violence, whether it's whatever. Okay, these require large collaborations of a number of different entities, individuals all the way up to governments, all the way up to regions, et cetera, et cetera. And the problem is, right now, the best ideas still today come from individuals. We can't have teams yet come up with ideas that seem to be better than what individuals come up with. And until we do, we don't seem to have a chance to solve these, existential threats to human society. So what he was interested in was giving groups of people, scalable groups, the tools and the process, the understanding, the approach to possibly construct this way of collaboration. He called it the, human system side of things, so that we had a chance to really get better than any single genius. I guess there are very, very few examples of groups being better than single geniuses. Manhattan Project is probably the typical one that comes up most often.
Let's see,
And
Engelbart also didn't foresee the change in software development that we have today. He was constrained, and now we have abundant memory and disk space, but it's the functional building on that to
Right.
make best use of resources. And then if we had those tools and we could teach people, hey, put your knowledge in here and then compare it to what another person wrote here and do pull requests, try to refine your ideas. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So Linux, for example, is not something he envisioned.
No.
And Linux, sorry, just one more statement on that one. Linux is not possible simply because it was Linux. Linux is possible and other large projects are possible because of Git.
Mhm.
And Git is the real innovation, I think, there. Linux is just one derivative of it. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's exactly what I was just going to say is the GitHub knowledge repository where you've got multiple people working on the same thing and they're doing the Git calls and it keeps refining. But then you take all of that information and put it into the pile of training for the language model to be able to rewrite the code. So the more people creating the code, that feedback loop creates better systems to check the code and so on and so forth. So it's a constant process of humans writing tons and tons of code, computers analyzing the best part of that, and then rewriting their code in terms of the iterations. So it's a constant feedback loop of getting better and better. That's what I saw Microsoft's strategy when they bought GitHub. As soon as they said we're buying GitHub, I went, oh, they're going to take all this open source stuff and close source it just like every tech company does. But now here we are. I don't know if you've used the latest Chat GPT or Claude language models that write code, but they actually are trying to refine themselves, but they can't. They can a little bit, but only as good as they were programmed to. So it's
I've
constant
gotten
feedback loop.
some good
Yeah.
code for simple tasks like a PowerShell
Right.
script or a stored procedure that it could do, and it works
But
pretty well.
aren't those tasks, Eric, that have been done hundreds of thousands, if not millions of times, so that therefore they
Right.
know a corpus of information, knowledge
But
repository, if you will?
yeah, but I may have done it 20 years ago a different way, and I don't know the modern way to code it. So I put it in Chat GPT. It codes a nice stored procedure which functions, and it does some new tricks that I didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah. And then another model could look at that and say, I know other tricks and refine it just ever so slightly. That's what I noticed with you guys saw Devin, right?
Devin who? What?
Devin is the Scott Woo's programming language to refine code, and he just got bought out by Microsoft and they put it into Chat
Figures.
GPT. Yeah. I'm just saying I don't know. I just find it extremely interesting that if you get like you were saying, a perturbation in the wheel where it doesn't work, if you get a system where one of those feedback things malfunction, then it starts writing worse code. And that's what I'm noticing in like the 4.0 Omni model versus the 3.5 Turbo model in Chat GPT. It can actually get worse. And that perturbation over time, like you're saying, 1/8 off, it'll start getting worse and worse. So 10 years down the line, it's worse than it was in 2027.
Yeah, so we need mental models of how these LLMs are doing their stuff and why they're worse, right?
Well,
Exactly.
that refers to what your definition of good or success or done or,
Yeah,
whatever metrics or values you want to apply to things. And if you leave those implicit or unstated, that's
Well,
when you go a different way, I go that way, and GPT goes that way, and Claude goes another way. Okay. So there's very different
are they
aspects.
using ISOs, Sam? I'm saying, are they using the International Standard Organization to actually have a committee and vote on these standards
I doubt it.
so that they
Those
don't get
committees
worse?
act so slowly. I think things are acting way too fast for those committees to actually be driving anything. I've
Okay,
been on
because
standards committees. Okay, they take years
yeah,
and years.
the reason I ask is I saw an AI avatar company that said they had an ISO standard. It was a Synthesia, this they just came out with models, and I was scrolling their website and said ISO standard, and I was like, wait a second, how did they get that?
There are thousands of ISO standards. I don't know which one they're talking about.
Yeah, I think
Let me
right.
look it up while we're talking.
I think at this time, each company is trying to figure out their guardrails,
Yeah,
how
I
they're
mean,
going to bring it in.
their whole manufacturing standards called ISO standards, but then there's also little micro mini standard, like, how do you write dates? It's
Mhm.
very, very different scales. I'm gonna take a
So,
quick pause. I'm gonna go get some coffee. I'll be right back.
all right, Sam. How have you been, Josh?
Oh, sorry, I had to unmute. I was looking up the standard
Yeah, go ahead.
ISO 4. I was just want to look it up. ISO 42001. So I wanted to look up what that it says. On track. Oh, on track to become. Man, these guys. I didn't even
Yes.
read that part.
Yeah,
On track to become the world's first AI company to achieve ISO 42001 certification, which
and
addresses the unique challenge of AI poses such as ethical considerations, transparency, and more. So that just answers my question.
so
They
Barry,
don't have the standard.
there's an ethics board for you right there. Be on the ISO.
Yeah. Well, if AIs solve the problem of being rigorously, consistently ethical, that'll be a great breakthrough for Western civilization.
But see,
That
everybody's
would be
struggling
interesting.
with the human side of ethics now. Like, okay, should this AI be allowed to write XYZ? Is that going to offend certain groups? Is that prejudiced? Even now that people have different opinions.
Yeah, and is it rude to falsify the belief system of a popular figure, or you just sort of stay mum on that?
Or you have clones of popular figures that people create, deep fakes that do different things, and then it gets in the news. Oh, this person said that. We got to cancel that person now.
Scientists are supposedly have an obligation to falsify stuff, even if it's the other guy's stuff. But that can get you fired or unfunded. You'll take grief for.
Well, yeah, we are stuck in the systems now. We're living in these many different systems running our lives.
Yeah. I mean, Shakespeare began one of his plays, "Something is Rotten in the State of Denmark."
Yeah.
I had a police detective back in New Jersey simply say to me one day, "The whole system is rotten." And that was a memorable quote coming from a detective in a local police department. But
I believe you.
you know,
Josh, have you ever read Cory Doctorow's Walk Away?
I think I've heard that name. I'm not sure where, but no, I've never read it. Cory
Okay.
Doctorow.
Yeah, his book Walk Away. It's also on audio. I listened to it on audio, and I think the premise is if we could get to a model of abundance, what would that look like? And it's also mentioning the Git strategy of branching. So, like, say people get together, they build a place to live, and then there's a faction that wants to go their own way. Well, they branch off and do their own thing, find a different. Yeah, so it's if there is a world of abundance, how do we manage abundance? Well, how do people live in abundance? And then it's also like when before people die, they could upload their consciousness, and it could become an AI going forward if they want it. But then you got the rich don't want these teenage punks figuring out the system. So there's conflict there. The ultra rich. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, I just downloaded the PDF. It says it's to Eric. Let me see. For Eric Stewart and Aaron Schwartz. So
yeah,
right there, you got me. You got me. I love Aaron Schwartz. So
yeah, it's a very compelling theory of a future world, which is like a prequel to his Down and Out in the Magic Kingdom. Yep.
Yeah, I thought about this stuff a lot in the 90s when we were trying to, what is the internet could be, what it should be, what it will be. And I think I've been depressed for about 15 years of what it became. Like this is not the world I wanted. This
Yeah.
wasn't it. And that's why I'm here on this call.
Yeah.
'Cause,
So like, what will the metaverse be? Is it
yeah,
gonna be,
I
yeah,
went into the metaverse and I met with the Facebook people that were doing the actual programming of polygons inside of the VR space.
right.
And that was
Hmm.
disappointing.
Well, that's nice, Barry. I didn't know that.
I just asked one of the AIs and that's its answer. I didn't independently confirm it, but I don't.
Yeah, it could be hallucinating.
What
Yeah, we don't know if that's the
What did you
truth. The Git and
The Git
GitHub.
I
stands
wonder
for-
what the Git and GitHub stands for, and according to one of the GPTs, it stands for Global Information Tracker, and credits Linus Torvalds with coming up with that acronym.
couldn't you just who created like who is the person credited with creating it? I'm sure you could just look that up.
Well, let me just ask it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a distributed version control system, which is what we needed. Engelbart envisioned that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that one of the first things Engelbart worked on was looking at how they write code, how they
Well-
can, yeah, do it better.
Eric, you played around with I don't know if it was you or Sam or who it was. I don't know. So many people have the idea. I think Sam was doing it for a while, the federated wiki
Mhm.
concept of how you have it. I think Jack was talking about that last week. How do you
Yeah.
have something federated? How
Mhm.
you make sure that it's not a group, it's not an organization, it's a federation, and what that word means in terms of changing information.
Yeah, that's was that Ward Cunningham has that. He has
Yeah,
his
maybe that's what
idea.
I'm thinking of. Ward Cunningham was. Yeah.
Yeah, he has a Fed wiki. I've looked at it a little, but it's hard to grok unless you study it.
Well, Sam was explaining it. Maybe Sam, you're
Yeah.
back.
Did you use FedWiki?
I tried. You have to comply with exactly its protocol of how you exchange and refer to information. And that already basically means you have to sign up to this particular model.
Mhm.
In my view, the whole point about federation and sharing is you have to be able to adapt to someone else's context / rules / Cartesian coordinates. In other words, you can have this little micro taxonomy about, money and currency and value and transactions and whatever. Okay, that can be, let's say, an economics 101 model. But I'd prefer to have an interaction model based on relationships and flow of goods and not transactions and not fixed pricing, but more dynamic value. So unless you can actually have interaction between these, where I don't necessarily have a concept that maps to a fixed price, and they don't have a concept that maps to a flow of value. We need to be able to construct communication systems where these things can be mapped together to make sense. That's non-trivial because that requires construction of new ideas. They're just not inherently existent in each of these separate systems.
Yeah, that's building
That's an intelligence
interfaces.
function.
Mhm. Yeah, constructing interfaces. Yeah.
Right. It's not just interfaces, it's meaning. You want to construct meaning
Okay.
in models.
That's where Jack Park's topic maps come in. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just
By the
going to bring
way-
up that topic max idea. Oh, go ahead.
Mhm.
You know who set up Topic Maps Slack for Jack? I did.
Oh, cool.
I was there in some of that early days. Okay.
Mhm.
So he's got like 20 or 30 people on there right now. And we've been talking about that for quite a long time, probably go back to 2008 or 2009, somewhere around that under.
Yeah, so I have Jack's book where he consolidated articles about that. I just need the discipline to read through that one day. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the idea of having a topics map or a framework that changes the cipher, if you will, like think of a decoder ring and
Yeah,
you've got like
exactly.
an outside. Yeah. At the last decoder, if you flip it here, it changes it to this model all the way down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we need a babble fish in everyone's ear.
So, yeah, well, I'm saying a babblefish that babbles the babblefish that babbles the
Yeah,
babblefish, meaning if
there
you
you
have a
go.
long decoder ring of these Transformers, at the very last wrapper around it, it's the Democratic National Party. So if you say who's going to win the election, it says Joe Biden, because we did that this week after the debates. AI says Joe Biden, all things being equal.
Well,
But I'm saying that's a wrapper around the language model.
you brought that up, but I early on said I brought two ideas.
Yep.
Unfortunately, the second idea is this thing that happened on Thursday.
Well,
Wanna talk
I'm
about
just saying, I don't want to talk politics, but I just want to know that if an AI could actually govern the system that Sam was talking about, that federated wiki system, there's too many different models. So could you have a in other words, you need a standard of we're going to do it in this wrapper, and then other people could do it in a different wrapper, but this is the wrapper that guides it.
And would you allow a smart contract to be the law?
I wouldn't. I don't like smart contracts
No.
personally.
But similar thing with AI.
Great question. Yeah, well, that's the
Question
whole
is-
thing is I don't think our logic is getting us to the place we want to be, because we're not allowing for, I think Barry said it best when he said the difference between protocol. What was it, Barry? Protocols and
The hierarchy is rules, then protocols, then functions, which is a big jump, then models, and then systems. So that's the 5-step ladder. And we're at the kindergarten rule level. Our culture can't get from rules to protocols to functions to models to systems. And yet that seems to be the progression without which our whole culture is going to collapse.
or unite or federate around. It could go the other way.
Yeah,
We all
that's what-
agree on the rules and the standards,
Well,
then
the problem there is that rule-based systems are now known mathematically to be inherently chaotic.
well, when is the world ever not chaotic? I
That's
mean,
the
how
whole
could
point.
you-
If you want to get out of chaos and then get to orderly, well-regulated systems, well-regulated is really feedback control theory, and that's function-based. You have to
So
have
can
a
we
system
take a
model.
vote?
You have to have a system model that's reliable, and then you solve the system model, essentially to take the inverse function of the system model, and that's what goes in the feedback loop. If you put anything else in the feedback loop, it's not gonna be a well-regulated system. Now
But can we
that's
start with that
basic.
question?
Go ahead.
The question you first asked, do we want to get out of chaos? Shouldn't we start there?
Well, the thing is, why would you want chaos in the first place?
Because it works, because it's the best model, it's nature's model.
War is hell. Hell is chaos. I mean,
But you can't, if you don't have war, then you don't have conflicts. If you don't have conflicts, you don't have feelings, you don't have emotion.
can
If you don't have
resolve
emotion or
conflict
feelings,
without annihilation. You can resolve conflicts without annihilation, without burning.
but you need to
the whole
have the
world down.
possibility of war in order to solve it in peace. Meaning, if there is no possibility of war, then there is no possibility of
You can
peace.
you can-
Philosophically,
you can have a protocol for resolving conflict. And the whole idea is conflict's inevitable. Then you need a protocol, a conflict resolution protocol, which is not annihilation.
There's game
Well-
theory models of how to resolve conflict to prevent world wars and all that.
can I put a pin in that for next week's topic of
Sure, why
do-
not?
chaos? I'm just saying, I would love to talk about that for a couple hours. Is, do we agree that chaos is going to happen no matter what rules systems you put in?
It's part of
Entropy.
it's part of Eco's theory that chaos is inevitable in any governance model. There's a whole Viconian model that includes chaos as a transition phase. And when chaos arises, then they have a revolution to the next governance model, but they keep cycling through the same problematic governance models instead of upgrading to protocols and functions.
So when the Andromeda galaxy merges with us, we'll be in chaos because planets and stars will be all.
Yeah, and the question is whether we can immunize ourselves from that kind of chaos.
Where
Who
will
knows?
we be?
It's going to be in 5 billion years anyway. The sun itself is going to blow up by then. So
See, I'll disagree with that statement also, because the system is in the same state of order or disorder now as it will be, good quadrillion years from now when the galaxies actually merge. The
But
same
the thing is-
principles will be at play.
But-
Okay. I don't
can you-
think physics is fundamentally going to
Can you
change.
have a
It's one of-
can you have a sanctuary within the chaos that doesn't blow up, doesn't get melted, doesn't
Well,
vaporize?
No, the whole question is, do you have that today?
We don't
'Cause
have a
if you can create
sanctuary.
it then, you could create it today, right? Like, and vice versa.
People
Right,
have
but-
talked about, I mean, you can have, I mean, D&D has a sanctuary spell. So you can have the concept of a sanctuary, but the question is sanctuary really living up to its name? Is it really a sanctuary?
If
Or
you
does
want me
it
to
get
hypothesize, I will
vaporized
say
anyway?
yes. I will say yes. I'll
I mean,
find
a
a black hole somewhere to hide.
hydrogen bomb will vaporize a sanctuary.
Okay, more practically, our Earth's magnetic field is moving and
Yeah.
decreasing, so we're getting more sunspots, activity coming to us, etc. Yeah, go ahead,
How
Josh.
long can you live underground before the whole planet vaporizes?
Yep.
Well, I mean, okay, so we know that there's always chaos. There's always going to be chaos. And then we want to keep the entropy into a system of a pendulum swing where we're swinging from more to less to more to less. Is that because that's the
Well,
way I understand
You want the inverted pendulum to stay upright. The
Ah,
inverted pendulum is going to fall unless you have a feedback control system like a Segway that keeps it upright.
right.
And that's calculus, by the way. The inverted pendulum problem is solved with calculus. You have to take the directional derivative and then plug in the inverse of the directional derivative at the base.
So not to blow my own mind, but you've got the 3-body problem. Now you've got the 8 billion body problem.
okay,
Yeah.
let's not worry about that now, but what
Yeah,
I'm thinking of,
Go ahead.
let's,
Thank you, Eric.
yeah, so can we look at global warming as an inverted pendulum? Or many inverted pendulums we're trying to balance?
Well,
and-
you don't want to pump up the system to the point where it's the biosphere is uninhabitable. Question
Right.
is, can you stop adding fuel to the fire to the point where you can actually extinguish the fire?
Mhm.
So far, we're not doing that.
Okay, but you
In
said,
theory, you can. In practice, we're not doing it.
In theory, you can. In practice, we can agree to not be stupid.
But in theory, there's a perturbation that we're not accounting for. So we can get all the carbon perfectly in order, all the water, all the earth is just running perfectly. And then we go through the heliosphere outside and it changes some of the energy and tilts us ever so slightly. And all the work we did is gone.
Well, it's not perfect, but scientists have been saying for decades, here are the steps we need to take at minimum. It's not a complete solution, but we got to do it. And we've been fucking around not doing it.
okay, but
Can
also
we get all the scientists to agree? Oh, sorry, Eric, go ahead.
can we watch what happens when disasters occur? How do people, how resilient are people in a disaster? And do they learn from it, or what happens? Yeah, because it's going to happen. You have pockets of the earth that are going to have disasters, and then see, Cory Doctorow's Walkaway was based on a book by Rebecca Solnit called Hope in the Dark about the natural disasters, and I think there's wisdom to be gained there.
It's the stupid thing. I mean, it sounds stupid, but I ate today, so therefore there is no global world hunger. It's
Mhm.
that reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's a peanut butter sandwich for anyone who wants it. You know?
Here's a snowball in my hand, so therefore there's no global warming. It's that
Uh-huh.
that's stupidity.
Well, there's plenty of evidence that our species is pretty damn stupid.
And then there are people that actually buy property on the beaches and don't care about 30-foot tide swells or typhoons.
Yeah.
They'll leave it to, oh
There's-
well, my day has come. It's that kind of reasoning.
And there are people who put
Oh.
dictators into office too, so it ain't happen.
Because he appears strong.
Right? Strong and stupid.
So we're coming up on 12:30 and I'm gonna leave at 1, but could I do a quick screen share?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Share desktop and share sound in case. Okay, so I'm gonna flip to Chrome. Okay, the one thing I want to show first is okay, so looking at
Oh, you just made my day, Eric.
yeah, so looking at our workflow, I want to look at what I was thinking about talking about today. So I have things like I listened to an auto recording from 2019 of you and Lauren, And you were ranting, and that's still valuable to review. Let me just minimize this.
I'm wondering how you found that.
Okay, because in my Otter account, I have a link to Lauren's old recordings from PKE, and here it is. So look what we got here. 2019, June 16th, so 5 years ago. This is what Sam and Lauren were talking about.
Mhm.
And let's see the summary. Okay, so it didn't do an AI summary back then, but now you get my conversations. I have AI summaries. Like I took the Hyperscope developer meetings from 2006, and it gave an action item to Christina Engelbart to email Doug documentation. And it gave well, that's a transcript. It inferred people from the transcript. So I'm questioning the value of AI in Otter. Would this really be useful? Is it good enough yet? I mean, for a quick overview of what happened at a meeting, look what you get now. Okay, or is it enough for me to do what I am doing here, which is just creating text files using a simple free transcriber service. And let's see if I download that again. And I gotta open it. Yeah, here, downloads. So open. So here I get a text view of that call from April 4th, 2006. So I could go through all this, mark it up, copy it anywhere, and it's just a text file. It won't take up much space. Now, the source of these are archive.org. So in 2006, they were smart enough to save all these meeting recordings, and Eugene Eric Kim put them on archive.org. And it's not perfect. He has some duplication here, but I was able to figure out the unique dates and save it all in here. And so I have 3 that I did through Otter AI, because that's all it allowed on a free account. Restream.io is the one that I'm using now to transcribe the rest of them. So we have a dynamic knowledge repository here of what was done in 2006. So my question, is there value in Otter AI summaries as part of a domain-driven design, decentralized, distributed dynamic knowledge repository using Datalog? So you like that, Sam, for your your goal?
Like I said, you made my day twice.
Good. So other things I was thinking, discuss Frode Heglin's work and history of collaboration. Okay, so what I copied down here is I used mirroring in Workflowy to copy some ideas I had about Frode. He has this Oxford DKR back from 2004. He interviewed Engelbart and Nelson, and I did the transcription here, so you could see a lot of interesting stuff that was talked about, which you could read later. So we could pick up where they left off. Frode was on a podcast, so I did a transcript of his podcast. He was with Vint Cerf in 2021. And Frode developed Author and Reader. He's expanding it to Apple Vision VR. So I'm interested in the intersection of our interests and Frode's research. So we could talk about maybe setting up a meeting with him sometime. And just other things. So Sam, do you know if I could view the history of edits to a Plex, or to see like if you edited parts of mine?
Not as part of the app today. Now,
Yeah.
what was interesting is every day I get an update of the diff, from yesterday.
Yeah,
to
I get
today.
summaries. Mhm.
But that is really awkward to work with to do what you want. So I would have to say no right now on that one.
Yeah, what I would want to know is which bullets did Sam edit in this shared Plex that we are working on?
That's right.
Okay. And I could show this, the code for the Bagels game in Barry's Mud. Let me flip over to that. That's a fun thing. Okay, so QEMU, we are looking at a local copy of Barry's Mud on my machine, and we could go to the Science Center. So this is Barry's Science Center model. And if we wait a little bit, you'll see the Archimedean excogitation puzzle start doing things. Yeah, so it spins its whirligigs and makes music. So he has code that every few seconds it puts another little text description of what that sculpture is doing. Okay, now let's go to the bagels puzzle. So a red ball came out of a chute, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so now here's the bagels puzzle, and there's a bagels machine, but let's look at bagels docs. Okay, so this is mastermind. The computer thinks of a 4-digit number, you try to guess it. So you type scramble, and Bagel's machine starts to scramble, and it takes a few seconds, and then you could start doing guesses. And okay, so it just finished scrambling, so you could do a guess, 1, 2, 3, 4. Whoops, backspace. Okay. Okay, so we guess 1, 2, 3, 4. The Bagel's machine thinks about it, and I got 0 bulls and 1 cows, so one of these is in the wrong position. So it plays mastermind. Now we could decompile the code. Decompile Bagel's machine. I'm just gonna put the number 49997. So there are 50,000 objects in this mud in 10 megabytes. Because it's all text. Okay, so here is the code for Barry's Bagels. So do you remember writing this, Barry, or did someone else help you with it?
I kind of think somebody else wrote it. I don't recall writing it. I think somebody else did.
Okay, but look at this code here. For each 0, 1, 2, 3, switch mid, get me num, v0, those are the variables. If it equals this, bulls, me add 1. So I could sort of follow this because it's an if-then logic. If this, do this, or do that on the else. And I mean, this is more procedural. I get the idea. Now, what I want to show you is in VS Code. This is closure. And this is Robert Martin's solution to mastermind. So here, there is map. And yeah, so he discusses, there's a minus sign, and he's doing like an overcount to subtract from to really get the number in the right position, or the number that exists but are in the wrong position. And he has a video going through all this. But look how compact that code is. Now, looking at this, here's the map, the reduce, okay? So I could grok the concepts, but looking at this code firsthand, I cannot figure it out unless I really study it. And so he's deriving this, which is mapping the guess, setting the, yeah, so there's no assignment in this. It's all functional.
There are no assignments in Clojure.
Right, it's amazing. So here there's local things going on, but they don't
leave, bindings, yes.
Yeah, they don't leave the scope of the function. And then I could look at the rest of his code here. Like he has a code breaker algorithm, which is more extensive Clojure, but still very compact. And he has an autoplay function, so it could play itself. Look at, that's all it is. And I could learn more. Here's his README, and it uses Midge as a testing framework. So he's doing test-driven development in Clojure. And I got videos. I'm going to show you where his videos are. Yeah, clean code. So functional mastermind. So I subscribe to his videos. I bought this video, and it's from 2018, but it's still relevant. And he gives you stuff. And there's all kinds of, if you look at my library, I can, these are the videos that I purchased. So I could then look at Space War widgets, Space War logic, because Space War has side effects because it's writing to a screen, but I could learn how it's built in Clojure. So that's a learning path that I found that can work for me. Okay. So you could follow my reasoning all through this. And yeah, that's what I just did compared to the functional. Okay, and yeah, this is just other stuff. I went to a responsible AI seminar for the future, but based on, let's just look at our outline. So these are my ideas for possible discussion today, but
Mhm.
this is the structure we've been using for now, and it just evolved over time. So we have questions, tracking my education, useful resources for study, initial thoughts, and where do we start? I think we're still figuring out where we start. Desirements, we've never really thought. So that video that I posted today, it's showing Doug working with NLS using the org term. Now, I think that'll give us a sense of what speed he had. And your original question was, what would it take to run this today? Okay, so now do we want, what would we want today? Like, would we start with something like workflowy and find better ways of using it? Or are there things in NLS that we want to bring forward into a project, maybe bring it to Workflowy's attention? And like, is there a decentralized version of Workflowy in the works? And I think they're in, oh, okay, yeah, then like, what do you want to do with Datomic? Do you want to do this kind of model in Datomic? And I have Mark Carranza's MX system, which is his Fox Pro memory map that he's been using since 1984. And I've put it into DOSBox, so I play with that. But I did a video called Decentralized Fox Pro, Barbaric Yelp, because I could essentially use that Fox Pro system and get the output of that, put it into decentralized web structures for my own purposes, or I could paste it into Workflowy as text files. Like, so there's a lot of things we could do. It's just, where are we going to focus?
Yeah.
So I'm going to stop.
That jots my memory, because before I went to Puerto, I said I was going to write you a CCC.
Yep.
I'm still going to do that, so I will send that to you. In fact, I'll do that and try and get you onto a Zoom session sometime this week at a time of your convenience. Because I think trying to do this all on the weekends is kind of taking up everybody else's time, you know, and it doesn't allow us to do just a simple one-on-one. So let's do that this week, because I'm back. I gotta, you know, focus on what I'm doing from here on out. So this is a good time.
Yeah, I work from home.
That's an
so
impressive amount of homework and research you've been doing, Eric. I'm really enthused by what you're putting into this.
Well, you see, it's the Workflowy that enables that in me. You see?
Yeah. And it's so simple, right?
Yeah.
Things that try to do a billion things are complicated. If just do an outline and share it and do this simple thing called mirroring, it's amazing how far that goes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can I ask what's a CCC?
It's a communication and commitment to collaborate. So it's basically a one-sided version of a MOU or a LOI. Okay, so in other words, an MOU has typically got two signatures on it. A CCC is just a single signature. I'm going to send one to Eric saying, hey, I like what you're doing. This is what I think we could do together. This is what I'm going to bring to it. This is what I think you could bring to it. Here's how we could work together. Here's what we could try and do. Here's what done means. Okay, that's the CCC. And I've got a whole deck on what a CCC means, and I've got many examples of these. I've written these since 2009. I've written a bunch of these with people I want to collaborate with. So it was generated out of the thing called Program for the Future, which is really a series of conferences starting in 2008 based around Doug Engelbart's work. But it's the human system side of things that Doug was interested in, supported, and I'm just trying to build on those ideas. So that's why there's a billion people trying to work on the technology side. And in my professional work, I've been on the technology side, but in Doug's world, I see too many people going there, not enough focusing on the human system side. That's why I decided to work on the human system side. That's why there's my interest in collaborology and COI and these kind of constructs, you know, like the
CCCs,
like the COI, you know, like Program for the Future itself, like the whole definition of mentor, of Tweech, of Global Sim, you know, WYSIDO, or etc. So I've got about 5 or 6 of these projects, all kind of taking Doug's ideas and expanding them the way I know how. So thank you for asking that question.
Oh, thanks for explaining it, because it just would have went right over my head. Okay, the CCC, it could stand for anything to me, but to you, it's a handshake that's really important to move the project forward.
Yeah, it's a one-sided handshake. Basically, I say, how do you shorten the time between a handshake or the exchange of a business card to an actual relationship slash contract? Okay. And the CCC is trying to say, okay, here's how we could accelerate things. Now, what it invites is a corresponding CCC from the other party. If the other party is not interested, nothing comes back to me. But it also is quick in that I don't need anybody else to write a CCC. Okay, it's just my own thoughts about how this collaboration could work. And if the other person is interested, then there's a response back. If not, no harm, no foul.
Hey, look, you made an agreement. We were talking for 5 years about how hard it is to make agreements. That sounds like a perfect agreement.
That's a one side of it, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
that's
now, our agreement is just to collaborate on this workflow we outline and then decide later what to focus on.
Right.
Yeah, and if
well,
you
that's
want to,
excellent. That's
yeah,
that's what I've always been looking for, is just a very clear, we're not making an agreement to finish the thing or to do the thing. We're just making an agreement to get it started to this point and then evaluate from there.
yeah. I mean, this could be a paper or a book in the future, or something to leave to future generations.
So I will send a link to the CCC deck that explains this. Maybe I'll include one or two more examples of it, because it's been years since I brought it up in these conversations, but I'll do it again.
Excellent.
Now, in Lauren's discussion, you also talked about COI, Community of Impact.
Yes.
Yeah, and she said that you had a one-pager, that it took you like years to get to a one-page
2+
document.
years. 2+ years.
Wow. Yep. So if you could
And in
forward
fact,
that
I'm not the
one-pager.
sole originator. The other contributing members were Dino Kerbeg at the University of Oslo, and David Price, who is in the UK. And those are the three primary. There's two other people who've contributed. Alexander Laszlo, he came later, and Frode Hegland was also part of that. So those 5 people,
Sure.
we 5 people were really the originators of the COI idea.
Nice.
And that's the one that says, figure out what you think good means, hold yourself accountable to that good, have 2 other people help you be accountable to that, and then connect with other people who want to do the very same thing. That's basically it. That's the COI.
Right.
That's what the one-pager says.
So say it was like you, me, and Frode to start, that we would have a community of interest. Like, we want to understand what Frode is doing, where he sees his technologies going. And I'd like him to look at our outline, see what he thinks is relevant to where our maybe
Yes.
just answer some of our questions.
Right.
Anyone working on decentralized Doug Engelbart stuff.
Right. No, Frode's done amazing work. He's got his whole PhD around all this. He's got an Apple / Mac app around all of this. And so he's definitely been very active and invested in all this. I unfortunately have been working on my day gig, so I've not done as much on this, but maybe that'll change. We'll see.
Right, but also what's fascinating, he's looking at the Apple Vision and gestures in terms of Engelbart's work.
Right, right.
3D text.
I mean, it's not clear where that's going to go, because at $3,500, I'm not sure many people are actually going to buy it.
But in the future, every kid will have one.
Yes, once it gets down to like $30.
Right. So, yeah, kids will be learning on them. But think about like bringing in some of Ted Nelson's principles too, like his Xanadu flight of documents. You see all the connections, the whole provenance, and you could browse it in 3D.
Yeah. By the way, that whole idea of collaboration being better than a single genius, that's Ted Nelson's objection to collaboration. He says, show me. Because today, single geniuses still do better than groups. That's Ted Nelson's challenge.
And he really tried to get Doug Engelbart to express himself about what his vision is. And it wasn't so clear where he was going. I mean, guess Ted Nelson really was challenging him to articulate.
Well, keep in mind, Doug, he's a thinker.
Yeah.
He's not a glib speaker.
Right.
He doesn't do great in public presentations other than that one 1968 presentation and a few other. In fact, I think the mode that he likes most is interviews. I did an interview with him that I thought he did well. Yeah.
Good.
But he's not necessarily the most impactful. He's not a Martin Luther King. He's not a Lincoln. He's just there thinking deep thoughts. Okay?
Yeah, if
Now,
you had
Ted
Lex
Nelson is very
Fridman
different.
interviewing.
Ted
that'd be
Nelson comes out
yeah.
of a media family. He comes
Yeah,
out of a
exactly.
family of actors and
Yep.
personalities and
Makes
big
sense.
names and charisma and all that. So that's Ted. Okay. So it's understandable how there's a difference in emphasis and how these
Mhm.
two people think and want to project and influence.
Right. Now, have you seen really good DKRs anywhere in the world?
Barry's going to object, but I think Wikipedia is probably one of the better ones. Okay. And the best one I think is still GitHub or Kaggle.
Okay. Kaggle or Kaggle? Oh, Kaggle. Yeah.
Kaggle.
Right.
And GitLab probably is going to get there now that people are trying to shun Microsoft, so it'll probably get there.
Okay.
Nothing else I think is at that scale.
Mhm.
But none of them are true DKRs. They're all
Yeah.
centralized right now.
Right.
They're not distributed. This brings up, the fact that, I tried to register something called KPI, as a TLD one time, but I didn't have the funds to actually go through with it.
Mhm.
KPI stands for knowledge in the public interest.
Mhm.
And if you can do, let's say tomatoes.kpi, and anybody can contribute to the whole concept of tomatoes, okay? Decentralized, okay? And then let usage and value and voting and reputation and all that have its play. And then have, let's say, capitalism.kpi, right? And you got another whole community building around that. And you can see how these networks of concepts can be connected to each other in the topic maps / knowledge gardening ideas that Jack has been working on, right?
Yep.
So I think if we have true decentralized knowledge that way, not controlled by any single person like Jimmy Wales, not controlled by any single person named, let's say, Mark Zuckerberg, et cetera, and you really get anybody who really wants to participate, contributing, and then the merits of the idea, the merits of the contribution determine whether it survives or drops.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
That's the whole idea behind the KPI TLD.
Yeah. And can it be protocol agnostic? So it'll run on IPFS or any other.
Exactly.
If we could define that interface.
These things should, yeah, exactly. Ride the wave of technology. So today
Yep.
it's maybe HTTP, maybe next day it's IPFS, maybe the next time it's Ethereum, who knows, right?
Right.
So transmutating all of the information from silos into the public domain in a format that's easily accessible by all, is that?
Yeah, and basically vettable. See, the problem with these single articles and single blogs and vlogs and quotes and whatever is people don't see connection today. People
Right.
see soundbite today. But if you have sound bites that are connected to, well, this is substantiated here, this is what he said in 2006, this is what somebody else criticizes this idea. If you get all that in context, then it's much harder to bamboozle the public.
Now, do you notice on research papers, they say this website downloaded on this date, as of this date?
Yeah.
So think about this, as I'm reading something, okay, I'll save a local copy of it in my DKR, and I will say it's a transclusion. No, if I say it's a transclusion of this website as of this date, then I have my back reference.
Okay, so now you're triggering another one of my thoughts, okay? Another one of my rants is copy is evil. So in other words, with a good infrastructure, where we have these things basically able to live indefinitely, you don't have to have copies
I agree.
for provenance, okay? You may want them for performance reasons across the network, okay? As proxy caches or whatever, okay?
Well,
Caching
you have the
is-
replication protocols
Right,
between
right,
nodes,
right.
so that's
But basically,
fine.
there's an authoritative name / address / location for every object. And once you get
Okay.
that done, then you can build, okay? The problem is, let's say Barry's problem, right? Where he can say something, 9 years ago, somebody doesn't like it, it disappears.
Right.
That is inexcusable.
Mhm. Okay, so if he has a copy of that file from 9 years ago that he's saved and he's indexed on his hard drive or whatever, it can find that, then that's his DKR. And what I'm saying is, say that is no longer accessible. No one in the world has another copy of it. Well, we could transclude from Barry's copy of it to our own individual personal knowledge repositories and then synthesize it in a group DKR, which is really just transcluding from my edits to Barry's original article.
Yes.
Yep.
Which is kind of like what the Hyperledger is trying to do, is an approximation.
Mhm.
What's the hyperledger?
This is where things get replicated so that they don't disappear.
Because that's what I thought the internet was supposed to be.
No, this is where I think copies are evil. You take a look at the cost of Bitcoin challenges, right? It's an amazing cost of electrical resources around the world. At one time, just computing all these coins was taking somewhere around 2% of a country's electricity, or somebody exaggerated that. But in any case, it's getting harder and harder to verify these claims. It's going to take more and more compute power, more and more electricity, and that's why Bitcoin it's got to evolve. Otherwise, it's just not going to scale. Okay, that's one fundamental problem with it. The other fundamental problem is there's only 25 million of them, and the first 20 million, go to the first 5 or 6 people. I'm exaggerating here, okay, but it's always the same thing. Any pyramid scheme, the early adopters win. Everybody else is fighting over 2, 3, 4%. Capitalism does that way. Bitcoin is that way. Every system of thought is that way, unless you build in justice and fairness into the system, which I have not seen, and that's the point that Barry and I connect on. Okay.
And just for your memory, PKE failed because it was trying to get like the 5%, that all we would be able to get is 5% for whatever work we did.
Yeah. Well, I'm not familiar with those details. I think Lauren and what was the other fellow?
Charles.
Yeah, exactly. They tried very, very valiantly to do all that. But yeah, I have my own thoughts on. See, this is why
Well, that's
any
not.
distributed
Yeah, I was
system.
just gonna say that's not why it failed, Eric.
Okay, you want to give your opinion?
Well, I asked Lauren right from the very get-go, our first conversation, what are you trying to do? And she said, I want to create a group that works for DARPA.
What?
She
For
said, I
DARPA?
want to create, yeah, DARPA.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, I hope I have it recorded somewhere so I can bring it back up. But she was very clear with what her intention was. And I think Charles had a different intention, and I'm sure you had a different intention, and so did I. I'm saying that that's why it failed, not because of the mathematics of any agreements or blockchain type
So
of
that's new to me.
contract.
I never understood that part of the derivation.
Yeah. Just a think group, basically. That
DARPA
could
does
be
more than
hired
just
by
think
DARPA.
groups.
Yeah, well, I'm saying that the goal was to be hired by an organization that could utilize that and to make a profit. That's the way I understood it. That was the intention. That's not what actually happened. So, but I agree with you, Sam, in terms of when you're mathematically trying to create one copy that is verified, that doesn't need, I mean, my problem with Microsoft was dynamic link libraries. When I first started using Microsoft, if I called something and then it called something and then blue screen of death. So I'm saying the idea of having a hierarchy is awesome, but the idea of getting everyone to agree, like that goes into Doug Breitbart's notion of all of us or none of us. If a million people or a billion people agree that that hierarchy can be that, in other words, think we're playing Jenga and each block is a piece of knowledge. And if we all agree that it's solid enough to go higher up, eventually it's going to topple over. It's not everyone has to agree. In other words, when do you stop the metrics is my question. When do you agree that that information is solid enough to stand on its own without being copied? Did I lose you, Sam? Okay. So what I'm hearing you say is that you need to have a hierarchy. How do
I
you
use the word
know
infrastructure, not hierarchy.
infrastructure? Okay. You need to have an infrastructure of knowledge built upon itself so it doesn't need to be copied. I just don't understand with if you don't
No, no,
copy
no,
it.
no. The notion
Okay.
is that any knowledge article, artifact, let's say an article or a web page or a JPEG or whatever it is, okay, needs to be able to exist indefinitely. Without that, you have a house of cards.
But
Now,
I'm just trying to point out the obvious, which is if it exists indefinitely and at some point it's not copied, who can tell you that that was like, in other words, you could change it and say, oh no, this was always what existed, but someone changed it
Uh, the,
sneakily.
the
Yeah.
protocol has signatures,
yes,
encryption, and all
yes,
that.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
You
So
can
you
prove
know,
what
even
that.
IPFS has hashes, you know, that
So
identify whether
what's
or
that
not
trusted certificate protocol is my question.
it's going
It's
to
a Merkle
evolve.
tree.
It's going to evolve.
It's a what?
A Merkle tree.
A
So
Merkle tree.
yeah, it's a distributed ledger essentially. It's fascinating how they do this. Cademula DHT.
I won't make you
Dynamic.
explain it, Eric. Just tell me, is it immutable?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I believe you. If you say it's immutable,
Yeah.
say no more.
Yeah.
You
These
would
are
know
like
if someone.
IPFS or other systems are intended to be planetary IP replacements, right?
Mhm.
It's like Vince Cerf is thinking, how do you build an IP system for the entire solar system, not just, you know, the United States?
Yeah. Yeah, it's I think what I'm hearing you guys say, you got to restructure the entire storage facility of all information on this planet.
Well, not restructure, but at least come up with something. You know, it used to be paper was the best we got, right? So now
Mhm.
we have DVDs, which is the best we got. And then we got fancy tape. And then we got this vertical bit storage media that just came out, you know.
Yeah, every few years you have to keep
Exactly,
upgrading.
right. So we have a need to evolve that while at the same time taking any artifact, let's call it the King James Bible, you know, just as one example, okay, and making sure that it exists and is provably versioned so you can always get to a particular version. That doesn't mean that other versions can't be derived from it. In fact, that's what we want, okay? But that any version is addressable and will always reliably be available.
Yeah, and
Like,
that depends on the number of peers seeding this network. Yeah.
Right, which is the way coins and Ethereum approximate it. That's the way that they take maybe, okay, so let's say, what is that? Holo says, you know, you don't need everybody to replicate this. You do it with the like 47 nodes or 27 or whatever that number
Right.
is, and it's
Mhm.
good enough, okay? Good enough sometimes isn't, okay? But
Yeah,
we
and
have to figure that out.
there are models for decentralized storage, which would use smart contracts to make sure that the people distributing the content are behaving
Right.
properly. So
But
it's
anyway,
possible.
that's a problem that somebody else can solve. I'm not
Right.
necessarily going to solve that problem, but I'm going to say if we have that, then here's how we can actually then build knowledge on top of that, and then build derivable products based on top of that, and then have this whole cascading forest of artifacts. So you can get your transcripts, you can get your AI summaries, you can get your repostings. I can take this snippet and create my own vlog out of it. You know, all of that should be possible if we've got the initial substrate, which is reliable. And that's, by the way, why I've wanted these 800 videos of GCC and CSG calls to be available.
And think of multimedia as a view spec. So
Yes,
you have
that's
the
right.
video, you have a transcript. It's, yeah, just
Right.
different views of the same
Right.
content.
Right. It's one form of knowledge, okay? And
Mhm.
another form of knowledge is that actual transcript that you got, or that
Or
the little snippet, like, you know, what was that thing that I started with Renee? Critical thinking. What the heck did I say? What was that?
yeah, if you had good
It was only 2
indexing,
hours ago and I forgot what I said.
but see, that's what indexing can do for you if you
Yes.
have a good DKR.
Clear thinking is rarely forgivable. Like something like that. Okay.
I forgive you all.
But that's rare.
Yep. Right. On that note, I'm going to get going, but thank you. This was wonderful.
no,
Yeah, this
thank
is
you,
fun. So
Eric.
Eric, I'm gonna do
Mhm.
the CCC. I'm gonna send it to you. I'm gonna propose a couple of times. You respond. we'll do
Yep.
that during the week, okay?
Sounds good. All right. Good seeing everybody. Bye.
You too, Eric. Barry, are you still here?
Yeah, I'm still here.
I didn't get your feedback on that. I was curious what your thoughts were on all that.
On which part?
The whole thing. I don't know if you were keep following it. It was
Well, the stuff with the flowy, workflowy, that's sort of over my head. I'm not really attending to
okay.
that. What I was trying to figure out in the last few minutes was, can I start an Apache web server on this iMac?
Okay.
Can I put last week's video in the sites directory, and can Sam access this machine via its IPv6 address?
Gotcha.
And I tried starting the Apache server, but it didn't seem to actually, I don't know if it really started or not. So I was looking for is a web server or FTP server that either of us owns, that either I put the thing here and he gets to it, or he gives me access to his
Are you
uploadable.
talking about a media server?
The problem is that a week ago when he was in Mexico, I recorded the session locally on my machine. And the problem is it's over 5 gigabytes. And that's too big to put up on Google Drive for me.
That's what I've been trying to communicate is the 5 gigabytes are fine, but 20 of the 5 gigabytes get bigger, and then you get to 100 and then 200.
Yeah. So what I wanted to see if I could do, because I have other Macintoshes that are running the Apache web server natively, but I don't know if any of them have 5 gigabytes spare. They might. I was going
Can I
to
give a possible solution?
What?
Truncation,
Meaning?
meaning you can convert. There's a video converter programs that will convert it from 5 gigs down to maybe 200 megabytes.
For a 2-hour video?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And the reason I say that is I used to take a video. I tried to create a media server when I moved off the grid. So I grabbed all the movies offline using Pirates Bay and all those type of programs, and they were roughly 2 to 3 gigs. Some went up as high as Blu-ray. So they were up to 8 to 12 gigs per movie.
I see.
But then I found a video converter program where it would convert it to the size of an iPhone. So it was taking the resolution down so much. And then same thing like an MP3, you take the audio quality and you can get it down to as little as, 200 to 300 megabytes.
That would take me longer than finding a machine where I can run it, where I am or can run Apache that's got the disk space. It's possible that my upstairs machine that I normally run Apache on has 5 gigs available. I need to go look.
Okay.
I was hoping that I could just start the Apache server on this iMac, which has an IPv6 address, but I don't even know if Sam has has access to the IPv6 network.
Yeah. Well, that's in my notes, the first thing to do is to take all this information and truncate it down to just the audio, and then take the audio and make sure the transcript is, in other words, redo the transcript in using the latest language model transcript so that it can actually get more information.
Sam wants to upload it to YouTube like all the other videos that he records for these Saturday, Sunday sessions.
Right.
And because he was not home and I couldn't.
I get your problem. It's only one video, your problem. I'm talking multiple.
I'll figure. I don't even know if Sam can access an IPv6 address in his browser anyway. He logged off, so I don't.
Yeah. Do you have a cloud storage that you guys can share that?
Well, that was the next question. Since my Google Drive isn't big enough, the next question is there any other cloud storage where I can write to something that he owns? I tried to upload it to his Google Drive, but it wants uploaded to my Google Drive, so it didn't work.
Okay. Well, I hope you figure it out.
We'll figure something out. I don't know.
5 gigs is a lot, though. That seems what do we need all that information for?
Eats the hell out of me. Sam is you know, he's adamant about having all these things up on YouTube. So what the hell? I mean,
Yeah.
that's his operational procedure to have all these videos. I'm sure that it's worth it, but okay.
Yeah, well, yeah, it definitely could be truncated down for sure. There's no doubt about it.
I'll go see if my other Apache web server has enough disk space to do it.
Okay, well, maybe I'll just take one video. If you download it from YouTube, it's actually truncated. When I download it, it's not giving me the full resolution.
Okay.
So I'll work on that.
All right. Anyway, so yeah, unfortunately, Sam disconnected, so I can't coordinate with him at this point.
Okay, yeah, no problem. I'm just curious because this is a lot that was just said, so I'm gonna
That stuff
go
is over
through it
my head.
myself.
All that stuff that Eric's working on and Sam are working on is over my head and beyond
Okay.
my bailiwick.
Gotcha.
All righty.
All right, well, thanks for your feedback.
Yep, take care.
Have a good one. Cheers. Thank you, Sam.
All right. I don't know if Sam is paying attention. I'm going to leave the meeting. He can, I guess, contact me on Messenger in the meantime.